We'd like to start by having everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty for justice for all. The next thing I would like to do is do a quick roll call. And our chairperson was not able to make it, nor our vice chairperson. So after roll call, I'm going to ask that one of the members here make a motion to choose one of you to be our chairperson for this meeting. So it'll take a motion and second. But I'm going to first do a roll call. Filkins?
Here.
Host?
Here.
Rice? Bunce?
Here.
Bosher?
Here.
Bauman?
Here.
Putvin? And Fent. Okay. Now I would like one of you to please make a motion.
Make a motion that the mayor serve as the temporary chairperson for today's meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay. Bosher?
Yes.
Bunce?
Yes.
Bauman?
Yes.
Host?
Yes.
Filkins?
Yes.
Mayor Filkins, I'm going to let you take over, please.
Okay,
Please.
thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, if we could get a motion to approve the agenda for today's special meeting?
So moved. Support?
Bosher?
Yes.
Bauman?
Yes.
Bunce?
Yes.
Filkins?
Yes.
Host?
Yes. Motion carries. And we also need to have a motion to approve our regular meeting that was held on May 22nd, approve the minutes from that meeting.
I move to approve the agenda from the last meeting.
Minutes. Yep.
The minutes from May 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Second. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Second by Host. Bauman?
Yes.
Bunce?
Yes.
Filkins?
Yes.
Host?
Yes.
Bosher?
Yes.
Motion carries. And now I'm going to we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike before we open it. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
The both of us.
Yes. To the mic.
Right. To me. I want to start by basically saying that this is it's a public hearing, and it is to amend the zoning ordinance, a rezoning, from its current zoning of R2, one family, single, to RM1, which includes multifamily housing. It does that, but there are other steps before, for example, an actual development can ever happen. But that is what this is about. This meeting is not to approve or carefully review a site plan. There's a process for that. It is for a rezoning of this particular north side of the parcel. The south side is not included. Abby, I'm going to let you're there already. The City of Cadillac has received an application from DKD Development along with Cadillac Area Public Schools to rezone a portion of the Cooley School site, which is at 221 Granite Street. It is from an R2 single family is what they're requesting to an RM1. This particular old Cooley School site is still currently owned by the Cadillac Area Public Schools. And DKD Development is currently in their due diligence period with the school district to see if they're going to be able to act on a development plan prior to closing on the purchase of the property. So they've not actually purchased the property yet. Going back to October of 2018, there was significant community input. There was public forum. There was a charrette. Over 40 people attended these. And basically CAPS, in coordination with the Michigan Economic Development Corp, agency called Alliance for Economic Success, the City of Cadillac, they basically were looking for recommendations from the community as to possible outcomes for this site in the future. But this goes back to October of 2018. There's been multiple public notices, newspaper, and on TV and websites and everything. So this goes back quite a few years. Through this process, basically 3 different scenarios came up of what could possibly be done with this site. And multifamily housing was actually one of the options that was included in all 3 scenarios. So this was one of the things that people in the community, stakeholders in the community, really felt was a good use of that site. It also includes the annex building. That was years ago a school also. I know my children went to an after-school program there, and so that is a part of this rezoning application. Again, I'd mentioned that Cadillac Area Public Schools is the owner. The applicant, DKD Development, is looking for rezoning so that they can, at this point, move forward with a plan and actually purchase the property. I'd mentioned there are 2 buildings on site. The oldest one, of course, is the Cooley School, and then there is the annex building to it also. Existing land use, there is surrounding it, there is the R2, single family, and you only have to go half a block away and you get into a B3 general business district where you have such things as gas station and a small motel and so forth. Abby can show a couple pictures just kind of showing the site and the neighborhood. Thanks, Abby. The City of Cadillac, the master plan, page 8 there. It's page 8. The City of Cadillac master plan for this school site, this Cooley School site, part of the master plan does call for this particular location to potentially be a medium-density residential development. So this is something that goes back to when the master plan was last updated, I believe in 2015. I'd have to double-check that, but this is something that's been in part of the planning process, discussion process for many, many years, and actually our former community development director is here today, and he knows some of the history of the master plan and so forth, but there are a number of considerations that we need to consider with this, and they start with is the proposed classification compatible with surrounding land uses and zone district classifications? Staff feels yes, the proposed RM1 zoning is compatible with surrounding land uses and the zoning district classification. The RM1 zoning district, in addition to allowing for multifamily development, also allows for single and 2-family dwelling units. Multiple family development is a very commonly used thing, is like a transition from a commercial district to a more single-family conventional residential district. The second consideration, is the proposed rezoning consistent with the city master plan? The master plan has designated the proposed rezoning site for potential medium-density residential development. The planned district relates to R2, R3, 1-family zoning, and even though those districts are intended for single-family, they also allow for schools such as this, residential facilities, nursery schools, day nurseries, day care centers. All of these different things by special land use are potential uses for the property. A third one is, are the existing public facilities services capable of accommodating the land uses permitted by the proposed classification? There is no question that our utilities, our public utilities, facilities, more than capable of supporting this site and a proposed future use. The fourth is the proposed classification equal to or more appropriate than the existing zone district classification. Staff feels yes to this also. The proposed RM1 classification is equal to or more appropriate than the existing R2 zoning designation, given the type of building, the buildings that already exist. These are not single-family residential homes on that site, and the buildings are more appropriate to a multifamily or something of that nature. The fifth condition, does the request meet the criteria required by the zoning ordinance for the intended use? Yes, there's no question the site meets the criteria required by the zoning ordinance for the RM1 district. And again, we're not here to review a site plan, but there certainly would be additional scrutiny down the road once a very specific proposed plan was brought to the city. There are some other considerations. One is the historic nature of Cooley School. We do try to evaluate community development projects, and this one potentially could support one of the goals in our master plan, which is to try and, in some nature, preserve or use some of our historic properties and kind of keep them, I'm trying to think of the right word, to keep them looking and having that feel of a historic building that's been repurposed. A site plan is not required, or is it considered for the approval of this rezoning application? Again, I want to stress these are two different, very different subjects, issues. The applicant, and I'm sure they're going to speak, they are here, proposes to renovate the school building and the annex into apartments, and they'll be able to explain more. Take a quick look. Also want to mention the site plan that we did get showed the portion, the north side that was proposed to be rezoned to this RM1. The south portion along would be Marble Street. That will remain, or this is asking to remain that at the R2. They did expand that property line a little bit farther to the south, and again, that was to accommodate some of the zoning considerations, such as size of the site for apartments. We have parking standards, we have other things, so the proposed rezoning, that particular lot line was adjusted a little farther south. And again, the applicant is here. They can explain some of that more than I can. Lastly, we do have a letter of support from CAPS for this. In conclusion, this board, this commission, they can approve things, approve with conditions, they can deny, but the recommended motion from our Community Development Department is that we recommend that City Council approve this rezoning application as presented for the property at 221 Granite, that the entire parcel, with the exception of the southerly 190 feet, be rezoned from the R2 zoning district to the RM1 zoning district, and that the property would then be split, property line adjustment, as we're familiar with, at this new zoning line. Included with your packets was the Cooley McKinley School going back to 2018, the community forum, the public forums, the recommendations from that. These over the years have been both on the CAPS website, our website. They've been available to the public And that's included, just to give a little history of the public input going back again to October of 2018. I'm done talking. If you have any questions for me, Carla, I'm going to turn this back over to you, but if you have any questions for me, again, the developer is here, and it appears there are some members of the public that are going to want to speak.
Okay. Do any of you have an immediate question before we open the? Okay. Okay, so at this time, we'll open the public hearing, and it would be appropriate to come forward, with your comments in support or otherwise. And during a public hearing, each individual may speak for 6 minutes. And so when you come forward, if you would please state your name and then write your name and your address for the clerk, that would be greatly appreciated.
I don't know if I'm allowed 6 minutes or not, Harley.
You are.
But good afternoon. I'm Dean DeKreiger with the DK Design Group. Today I'm representing DKD Development. I appreciate you having this afternoon meeting. One of the things that Mr. Coy mentioned is that we are in our due diligence process. You probably are aware that this process has started and stopped and started again. The reason being that as you look at projects like this, you take the pro forma that really the outline is provided by the state, is the one we use from the MEDC, and you put your construction costs into it, you put your mix of units, the rents, what you can achieve from it, and you try and determine whether the project is viable. And the first time we went through this, it really was not viable. Viability has to do with a couple things, but primarily it has to do with when the project occurs, we need to have investors put dollars into this project, and if the return is less than they can get on a CD, they're probably not going to put dollars into it. So that's what made it not viable. Since we went after it the first time, the state has opened up more grants. There is another, what's called a RAP 2 grant that is currently available, and that is why we have asked to speed up this planning commission process a little bit, is because that application has to be in by the end of June. It just came out. So our timeline was truncated, and that's why we're pursuing this. As was mentioned, this process has been going on for a long time. The reason we even looked at it was that we were requested to respond to the RFP by CAPS and following the format that was in the RFP as far as a requested use for the property. The intent is to keep the two buildings intact and develop inside of them. We will also be going for some historic tax credits, so we will be restoring them as authentically as possible to the exterior. That'll be a requirement for historic tax credits. That's really about all I think I need to say right now, and again, I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Troy Baxter, and I'm here in Cadillac, and I want to state that I have been through the process from the beginning to now, and I would disagree with some of the premises that Mr. Coy brought, but the point here today is the neighborhood has been single-family dwelling for, might as well say, forever. And I feel like that single-family zoning needs to be protected just as much as Councilman King and Mr. Wallace was ready to protect and should protect the R1 zoning from the Airbnb. This neighborhood is not as lucrative as Sunnyside Drive, but they still are part of Cadillac. And I went to the meetings for the school. We were given 3 choices to put your sticker on which one you like, okay, the most. And all 3 of those choices was multiple family housing, every one of them. I was at those meetings and asked, about another consideration to go a different direction. Was not given any presence on that all. But I did canvass the neighborhood. We've had plenty of time to develop relationships, and there's 28 households signed here that says that I strongly oppose any zoning change allowing apartments at Cooley School. So if the neighborhood has a voice in your decision, okay, this was given to the council over a year ago. And there's letters that were encouraged to be sent to John Wallace, and he's not here today to verify how many letters he got from the neighborhood, but there's several promises from the neighborhood say they just don't want it. And the question is why wouldn't they want multiple family dwelling right next to their property line? Because it changes the way things have been. It changes what they bought the property, knowing that there were guarantees there. The R2 zoning is single-family zoning. And so what do you do with Cooley School? Well, there are other options, and the greatest need that everybody's trying to address is housing. We need housing, and I've heard estimates anywhere we need 3,000 housing units, and I question that number. I think a real number, based on the studies, there's over 100 pages of research here that I could offer you. Our number is 1,600 units over the next 5 years. This is a conservative number if things continue to move down the road. So creating a crisis of we've got to scoop up Cooley School and make 12 apartments out of this and destroy the single-family values of this neighborhood is not valid. Okay? It is not a valid argument. It's an opportunity, and it puts what Cadillac Public Schools want, okay, ahead of the neighborhood that's still going to be there. And I know for a fact that no one from the Cadillac Public Schools board that is making the decisions lives in that neighborhood. I know for a fact that no one from the city council lives in that neighborhood. We've got somebody that's relatively close, but it's not within 300 feet, so she didn't get a letter. So I'm just saying we're committed to this community. I'm committed to this neighborhood. And I know that if the council wants to go this direction hard enough and far enough, you'll find a way to do it. Okay, but you won't be able to do it without stomping all over the values and of this neighborhood. So please bear that in mind. And at the end of the day, we're going to give it our best shot. And a project like this takes consistency, persistent. I feel like we've been very diplomatic in the process of it. I want to remain that, and I want to remain something that's not an enemy. Thank you.
Hi. I got to sign in here, or just statement? Kenneth R. Klaus. I live on 124 Marble Street. Been a resident there for 10 years. I own the house. Roughly 10 years. It was a school for 2 or 3 years yet at that time when I moved in. Quiet neighborhood. We love it. We expect it to stay that way. We never expect to change like this, like what they're proposing. I'm strongly against zoning change of any sort. I agree with Troy Baxter on many of his statements, and the fact is, I feel that I don't want to mention any names on it because I've had a stroke recently and stuff, so stuff's hard to remember some of this stuff. But when that article came out in the paper and it showed the development proposal and all that, I don't know if everyone remembers that. And it showed like neighborhood going in on the south side or in the streets out on Marble and the apartments and all that. I think it was that article, somewhere in there, if I'm not mistaken, it basically dismissed the opinions of the tax-paying neighborhood. So to me, that's a little bit something to consider there. So like I said, I've never done this like this before, so a little nervous, but thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Debbie Grimes. I just wanted to put out thought there for a moment. If you moved into a community, I think, especially like a lot of us women and stuff like that too, when we go moving into a community and we have kids and stuff, we check out the neighborhood, right? Especially when purchasing. So, you know, a lot of people that purchased there looked around and saw school, stuff like that, and knew that that would be there. If you today, where you live, all of a sudden next door was becoming a multifamily unit, right? How comfortable would you feel? It's a rhetorical question, so I'm expecting no answers. How comfortable would you feel? How would that change where you live? How would that change what happens with the kids? That's a big thing. And a lot of people have also brought up like property value, things like that. I see the need for housing in this community. I think everyone does, right? But the current rezoning for this lasts longer than even what they have proposed. This project was backed out of earlier this year. And they did come back with grants and things like that that they're trying to obtain. So wonder if we change the zoning and then wonder if they can't go through with what they even want to accomplish. Now we've opened up a door for even further. Maybe the next person, doesn't keep the historical value. If this company is not able to get their grants and not able to get their funding, what happens next? We're going to change zoning in hopes of getting this funding and these grants. What are we opening up the zoning to? Will it stay as the current proposal, right? But I want to go back to my first question and let you think about that. I know personally that where I live, I would not want a multi-unit next to me. And I'm not against multi-units. I used to live in one. I'm not against them. There is a need in Cadillac for more of them. But I also want to state that I don't see how many one-bedroom apartments at $1,100 a month is going to help our community, because the average person that is single can't afford $1,100. So that would be another thing to think about. But again, I want you just to think about what would happen if they put in a huge complex next to you with more cars and living in your area, because that's what we do when we go out and look for homes, right? We check out the area. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
My name is Philip Hayner. I actually live directly across the street from Cooley. Now, there needs to be a big distinction made between community and neighborhood. Yes, Cadillac community needs housing. Yes, a large portion of the community says they want Cooley to be turned into multifamily housing. But as this lady has said, how would you feel if it was put in your neighborhood? How would you feel if it was put in your backyard? That's what's happening. That field on the backside of the Cooley property that's not currently being rezoned is literally the only location for most of the kids in the neighborhood to play. We don't have a park over here in the south end of Cadillac. Closest one's on Chestnut, which is about a mile away. And that's not safe for our kids to walk all the way down there. Or if you had little children at the time, are you going to let them just go to the park, or you take the time out of your day to take them to the park and have to stay there? I have no problem doing that at times, but not every day I can do that. So sometimes it's, hey, go play. We all do that. Just on the north side of Granite Street, there's over 15 children still in school, 9th grade and down. And that's where they need to play. That's where they play. They play on the basketball hoop. They play on the swings. That's where they have their space. And that's what this development is going to take away. I know with the other bids that were put out there were different situations that were made available. And the neighborhood, the 28 houses, I was included in that 28 houses. We saw those other bids and we said, yes, we want this other bid. We want the bid that puts in a park. We want a bid that makes schooling available in the annex as a head start. I know for a fact that Wexford County is the worst county for education for 0 to 5-year-olds. For every one seat of 0 to 5-year-olds, there's 3 children wanting that seat. And this was going to open up more seats. And yet that plan was dismissed completely. This is something the city council needs to look at when deciding what does the neighborhood want. There are over 20 acres of land ready for development elsewhere, not using Cooley School. Ask those neighborhoods, how would they feel about their community or their neighborhood having multifamily units? If one of those neighborhoods are good, put the multifamily there. Don't put it in a neighborhood that wants to fight it and doesn't want it. Put it in a neighborhood that's okay with it.
Thank you.
Me next. Hi, my name is Louise Klaus. I've lived in Cadillac all of my life, and I went to school up there. You're building all these houses, who's
Excuse
gonna
me.
stick around and rent them?
Excuse me, you're addressing the,
Okay.
you're addressing us, not anybody. in the audience.
He's building all these houses, or this apartment complex. Who's gonna stay there and make sure that the people that are renting it, or the ones that won't come and rent it, who's gonna take care of this property? We already have a problem up there because the Cadillac School District won't police their property, and then when we call the police because we see something going on, we get told, oh, well, we can't do nothing. The property owners ain't done nothing. The property owners didn't call. Where's the property owners when we need them? They're not there. As a matter of fact, they're not there hardly for any of the kids that need them, I know, because I've been there. And now shame on the city of Cadillac, whatever here, right? Because it was written in the newspaper that you dismissed us, that we weren't worthy. Just dismiss the people in the neighborhood. It sounded great. I wasn't going to do this. I wasn't even going to stand up and talk because things like this make me sick. Because there was a proposal once for something that could have went in that would have done our neighborhood good. A church. A school right next to it for our children. A playground right there on the site. And the same people in the neighborhood that have been watching that place for the last, myself, 10 years to make sure our kids are safe from the people there that run around, aren't policed, aren't run off, aren't built a home so they have some place to go do their drugs. And that's what you're proposing, is to go and put in a multi-family home in a school building with another school building right next to it. You know what? You know what I remember in all these many years that y'all have been reaching out to the community in this? I remember one man in my neighborhood reaching out. Not this one back here behind me, not none of you, not none of these people, not anybody else from the city of Cadillac, because oh my God, if they'd have showed up at my door and asked me about anything I cared about in my neighborhood, I'd have gave them a frickin' earful. Because I do care. But I also know that I'm too poor to stand up and care. And that's how y'all make me feel. Especially when you literally write it out in the newspaper that you can just frickin' dismiss us. Just dismiss us. Thank you all for just dismissing us. Thank you for not, I don't know what it was that you thought you were doing when you thought you were doing it, but it sure as shit wasn't reaching out to me. No. You ain't reaching out to any of the kids in the neighborhood. Where are you going to put them? Where are you going to put these little kids that go over here and play on this playground with their parents? We literally have families that go in there. I can't turn around and look at you because I'm not addressing him. But where are you going to put these kids that have been playing in this neighborhood? Where are you going to put them? Who are you going to send them down to the park, what, a mile away with, while their parents are at work? Where are you going to put them? Where are you going to send them? Could have had a head start right there in the neighborhood for parents of children that need a head start in the neighborhood. Oh my God, that would have been great. Maybe with a church, and the whole entire area down here on the south end would pick up a little bit. Maybe something that the whole community, as you say, could get behind. Or at least just the people in our neighborhood. The ones that don't want this multi-family housing going up, because that's not what it is. That's not what it's for. You can go someplace else and you've got, I'm opposed, just in case anybody didn't catch that. I also have a letter here from Henry and Gloria Vandervelde. They live right next to me on Marble Street. They couldn't make it. Like many of us in our neighborhood, we're disabled. Just can't get our butts up and out. Can't get it done. And they were one of them that couldn't. And they are, as well as us, opposed to having houses there that nobody's going to take care of, nobody's going to police, nobody's going to rent. I don't know what. But anyways, whatever it takes to make you guys happy and whatever it takes to, you know, like, do whatever the city of Cadillac's got to do and what have not, right? Yep, I should have been more prepared, right? Never done this before because.
You're all right.
Yep. Who just said that to me?
Excuse me.
Well, you did? You're not him,
Excuse
are
me.
you? Because I can't address him. Oh, do I got to address you?
If you would, please, and also I would ask that if you would like to give the Vandervelde's letter to the clerk, that would be appreciated.
To. You're welcome. Almost stole your ink pen. Gravy, right? Can we hear the letter? Oh, God bless America. May I read that to out loud? I'm sorry. Yes, I can. It's mine. Give it back. Thank you. Henry and Gloria Vandervelde. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. I'll spell it Vandervelde. Own a home on 204 Marble Street. We strongly oppose the city of Cadillac allowing rentals to be built on Marble Street. Or granted. Thank you, Gloria and Henry. Thank you. You're welcome. Sorry I didn't do that in the first place. Can I leave now? I just don't want to look at the city of Cadillac anymore. Just remember I was here and we're opposed. Very opposed.
Thanks, Louise.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, Troy, thank you for being the only one that does
Excuse
not
me.
live in
Go
our
ahead.
neighborhood.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, shouldn't have got me down here, I told you. Yeah. Thank you, Troy. And thank you for everybody that did this.
Go ahead.
No, you go. You're up there.
No, go ahead. Ladies first.
Well, it's hard to follow Louise. My name is Ruth Ann French, and we're actually good neighbors. And I wouldn't want to do or say anything to, and I live on 119 Marble Street. I've been a resident and a homeowner there for 30 years. And so Cooley School's just down the road, a couple of houses. And it's also, my grandkids play in the, the former playground there, and what's left of it with the basketball court. We still like to go down there. It's a great community neighborhood space. So I would gladly hope that in whatever development takes place, that somehow is preserved as a fixture for the neighborhood to take part in. meaning some kind of common area there, playground for the other kids in the area that that live in the neighborhood. I would not, however, be opposed to your your change in the RM1 change. That I understand that we do need housing in our community. As far as change in the neighborhood, I probably suffered the biggest change with having loom put in my backyard. Now, that was part of our neighborhood, and as far as I was concerned, has altered the atmosphere of our neighborhood in a different way. So that affected me. Now, I don't live right next door to Cooley School, so hopefully that others will not suffer what they're imagining to be, a terrible thing with apartments in their neighborhoods. So I guess I would probably be, sounds like maybe the only one in the neighborhood that would not be opposed to that change. So I just wanted to go on record to say that.
Thank you.
Well, what a beautiful afternoon in Cadillac. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. My name's Randy Lindell. I live in Cadillac. I'd like to start out with that I oppose this project and the changing of the zoning. I oppose the rezoning from R2 single-family district to RM multifamily, to the multifamily district for the rezoning that DKD development would like to develop. They backed out of the project back in February, and their bid was like $100,000, if I recall correctly. And this other gentleman, I think he put a bid in for the $200,000, and he was declined that. So for his project, so the school offered the property to DKD Development for $100,000. So, anyways, I'm gonna agree with most of the citizens of Cadillac that live in the Robertson Street area, Granite Street, 221 Granite Street. How it's going to affect the whole area, more traffic, more vehicles, noise, more lighting in the area, etc. And who's to say in the future that the south side of that project will not be used for future development for housing units? And I think that's something we should take in consideration. Now, along with rezoning from R2 to RM1, it was stated earlier that a half a block away, there's a different zoning ordinance towards the gas stations in that, or zoning districts. And that's exactly an example of a gentleman over on Pine Street that lives in the R2 district wanted to do an Airbnb for his house, but he's only less than a half a block from Mitchell Street. So it's very important for the community, for the citizens of Cadillac. If they do not want this project, it will be a detrimental effect that will affect them for the rest of their time here. So anyways, I just want to state that. So I believe that we should keep that as R2 single-family district and not change it to RM1 multifamily district. And we should go with the other offer that this one gentleman did. So, and also I'd like to state that they were in, back in February when they backed out, DKD they did not have enough financing and investors. Well, what really upsets me most is that he had stated that there's tax money and grants and Michigan grants. And so who's going to make the money on the project by using the public's money? The investors are. So I think we need to keep that area at 221 Grand Street as R2 single family. Thank you.
My name is Jerry Adams. I live at 338 Woodside Circle. I'm a resident of the city. I'm in support of the project. I can't add a personal flair to it, but since I have 6 minutes, I didn't realize I'd have much time, so you're going to get more than you really want. But I'm going to look at this basically from a rezoning standpoint, from a master planning standpoint, and very quickly, and I don't want to reiterate what has already been stated, but there are a number of standards that we use to look at a rezoning, and I think that it fits the vast majority of these. Very quickly, one of the standards is how is this consistent with the city master plan? There are a number of ways. One, the city master plan talks about encouraging the placement of medium to high density residential development within or near business areas, and in particular the central business district. I did some, using Google Earth, did some calculations, and if you were to walk Granite and Mitchell, you'd find the core of the central business district is about 3/4 of a mile away, which is walkable and bikeable. But more importantly, within about 50 feet, right across the street, you have a commercial development, former hair salon. Within 200 feet, you have a whole complex of commercial uses, a gasoline service station, a restaurant, general retail stores, and so forth. So very walkable, very bikeable, very consistent with the master plan. The master plan provides for the fact that we need a range of multiple family housing choices. And again, I think this project provides opportunity to meet that particular aspect of the master plan. The standard relative to the master plan calls for providing multiple family housing in somewhat of an integrated mixed-use development fashion. And while this is not a mixed-use development per se, the setting very much mirrors a mixed-use kind of setting in terms of it being associated with single-family uses as well as a host of commercial uses. And then lastly, in terms of the master plan consistency, the project provides for the adaptive reuse of a building that has been vacant for some time. The site has sufficient area to accommodate on-site parking. The site is walkable and bikeable to a range of commercial uses. And very importantly, Granite Street has sufficient capacity to more than accommodate the vehicles that are likely to be generated by this development. I looked at MDOT's traffic counts for Granite Street for last year. And if we look at 100 feet west of Mitchell on Granite, last year, average daily traffic was 3,378 vehicles. That street, although I wouldn't want this much traffic, is probably designed for about 10,000 vehicles per day. Now, nobody wants that. But if we look at what this particular development will generate, based on the ITE, Institute of Transportation Engineers Manual, this sort of development is likely to generate about 4 to 6 trips per day per unit. So in other words, if you had a 10-unit complex, you'd be looking at 40 to 60 vehicles per day. Very insignificant in terms of the Granite Street's capacity to handle that development. The second standard is that the range of uses permitted by the proposed change will be consistent with the character of the area. The area is residential and commercial to a large degree. And I looked at what sort of owner occupancy status does this neighborhood have. I calculated about 30 to 40% of the homes are renter occupied. So it's not as though this is a solid owner occupied area. And I talked with Mr. Wallace. He confirmed those particular statistics. And both are very important, by the way. I don't want to impugn anybody. As already has been mentioned, the existing infrastructure as well as the city services are more than sufficient to accommodate the proposed use or uses that will be brought about by the development. And I should mention, in terms of the principal permitted uses of the proposed zoning district, they're all residential. None of them are commercial per se. And some folks have mentioned, well, you know, under the special land use designation, there could be some uses that may not be appropriate for the area. Those uses don't have to be permitted, okay, if they don't meet the standards of the ordinance. Almost done here. Next standard is that the proposed use shall not result in the economic decline of adjoining property values. And I think two things come into play here. First of all is that the adaptive reuse of an older vacant building and site, it will be rehabilitated based on current building, zoning, and property maintenance codes. It's going to be brought up to a very good standard that doesn't currently exist. And I think very importantly, the rezoning will provide for the placement of a use that's going to provide a local tax assessment funds for the benefit of the city, the schools, the library, and the other taxing jurisdictions. The next standard, the proposed use shall be governed by sufficient standards to ensure that the potential for problems of incompatibility are handled, whether you like it or not. This use, as well as all of the uses in that area, are governed by city ordinances controlling such things as zoning, noise, utilities, and so forth. So we have in place the provisions, the standards, the laws needed to take care of situations should they occur. And I'm going to kind of end it there. One additional consideration, some folks, I listened to a recent meeting where somebody mentioned that this is spot zoning, okay? I don't know how familiar you are with spot zoning, but I'm going to give you a little primer. Okay, spot zoning essentially is zoning where you afford someone a right or a privilege to develop their property in a way that others can't. And generally speaking, when we look at spot zoning, we think about zoning a piece of property, allowing for a range of land uses that will be inconsistent with the surrounding development. I don't believe this is a traditional or a typical spot zone per se. Sure, we're going to rezone possibly a smaller parcel, but I think it's very appropriate, very applicable for the situation at hand. Secondly, and I think this is very important, spot zoning, even if it were spot zoning, and I don't think it is, spot zoning gets a bad rep. There are situations, particularly in mature urban settings, where spot zoning is very important. If any of you are over 60, none of you, right? Okay. If you grew up in an urban area, like I grew up in the Detroit area, okay, and in a neighborhood, residential neighborhood, close houses, almost every corner had a little grocery store. Okay, over time those grocery stores went out of existence, yet you had existing buildings that were still standing, that were very viable. Well, what's happening now? Those little buildings are being redeveloped, reused for neighborhood coffee shops, maybe a neighborhood office, whatever. And so there can be some very positive benefits to taking a small piece of property and utilizing it for a different purpose for the benefit of the neighborhood, of the city, and so forth. And with that, I'll be quiet.
Thank you.
I support the rezoning.
Okay, I think that covers everyone in the room. So, thank you. So we'll go ahead and close public comment and move to discussion. Questions for staff or anyone? And just a reminder that we're not here to look at the site plan, decide what's going to go anywhere. It's simply looking at the rezoning.
My only comment is I think that's the only struggle when we mixed it probably unintentionally, you show a picture that looks really nice. And so you start to feel that that is what will be there. And so it's really important, at least from my standpoint on a rezoning, that one of the community members said and suggested, well, that if you rezone it and for some reason costs change again, it's been rezoned. And so who knows who might be there, subject to a future site plan approval. I'm actually in support of the rezoning, but I think it's important that we keep in mind how we phrase these things and how and why we make the decisions. So
I agree.
One of the things I hear is that they want, whatever happens there, that there needs to be a neighborhood playground and a way that neighborhood kids have a place that they can go that's safe. So regardless of how it's rezoned or what is developed, that there somehow needs to be some kind of a play area.
well, we also can't control that on the
Right.
rezoning.
No.
No, that's
But
not a part of this discussion.
That's one of the concerns that I hear.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I personally live on Granite Street, so we have an amazing amount of traffic. And, I look at, when we're down at the Michigan Municipal League and we hear what cities are doing with properties such as this, bringing them back to their glory, maybe in another way. But it's not left standing empty. It's addressing a need, a real need in this community. Housing is a real need. And so, I think that if there's an opportunity to have something like this in the neighborhood, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it. And that's just my personal, which maybe I should have kept to myself, but I am very proud of this community, and so.
I agree. Preserving the historic building and the school in a different way and repurposing it is a benefit to the community. To tear it down or let it sit and deteriorate, it's not a good benefit either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I also support the rezoning.
Okay. Greg, did you have any thoughts?
None that I want to share.
Okay, all right. No more questions for staff? And if not, would someone like to make the recommended motion from the staff?
I'll make the motion. I'll make the recommended motion. Do you need to hear it out loud?
Yeah, I can read it. And actually, the city attorney, I asked him to take a look at it, and he changed one word.
Okay.
So would you like me to read it?
Please.
Okay.
We need to know what that word was.
Recommended motion. To recommend that city council approve this rezoning application as presented for the property at 221 Granite Street. The parcel number is given 10-051-00-12500. That the entire parcel, with the exception of the southerly 190 feet, be rezoned from the R2 zoning district to the RM1 zoning district, and that the property be split at the new zoning line.
That reflects my motion.
Perfect.
Do we have a support?
I support.
Okay. Bunce,
Yes.
Filkins,
Yes.
Host,
Yes.
Bauman,
Yes.
Bosher.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, is there any new business that we have to carry out during the special meeting? No. Any old business? No. Okay. Board member comments? Any communications from staff for the board? No?
No.
Okay, so at this time, we'll go ahead and open just the public comment, regular public comment. We do ask again if you would write down or say your name and write your address for the clerk if you haven't already done so. And keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Would you expect any less? as I anticipated, you found a way to disregard the neighborhood in light of the perceived greater good for the community. And I think you'll look back on that as things unfold and say, well, we didn't make the right decision. But only time and the economy and circumstances in people's life will unveil that. And so just know that we're committed, as have been since we got here 12 years ago, to continue to beautify the city of Cadillac and interact with multiple agencies for the people. Most of them are down and out, such as New Hope, and then the mid range, which would be the workforce development group that won't be able to afford Cooley. And a lot of the work that we do with the MOST program is for the people that are up and down Sunnyside and have a lot more money than most of us in this room put together. So we're engaged with a good cross-section. And one thing that will happen if this project moves forward and if they get the grant and they're able to follow through and there's no hiccups along the way, is this neighborhood will be changed from now on. And that's not something that the property owners that share the borderlines will ever get over. They'll never get over it. They'll never get past it. I will, because we live in a dispensation of grace, and I need to say, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. I need it, so I better give it. But just to know that we're just walking it out and continue to stay committed to the city of Cadillac. It's an awesome place that I thoroughly enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to make a quick comment. Again, Dean DeKreiger with DKD Development. Thank you for your time and for your insight today. I agree, actually, with what was just stated. That property will be changed. That neighborhood will be changed. We keep getting told that it's going to be changed negatively. I don't believe that. I believe this neighborhood is going to be changed very positively. We're not going to have a building that's deteriorating. We're not going to have vagrants. We're not going to have drug users breaking into that building. We're not going to have property that is in disarray and falling apart. We're not going to have safety hazards. We're going to have people who live there. This is not short-term rentals. This is not Airbnb or VRBO. These are people that will be hardworking people in our community, that will be assets to our community, and this property will also be an asset. And these neighbors, we very much appreciate where they're coming from, but also their property value is going to go up. So thank you.
Where am I? Yeah, okay. Ruth Ann French, 119 Marble Street. I'd like to reiterate what Dean just said. Change is a difficult thing. None of us want to have change in our backyard. Believe me, I've just went through that, as many of you already know. However, I think that I've always been a proponent of Cadillac's beautiful south end, right? We've got the north end of Cadillac where all that development is. I think that by developing this property, we're going to bring we're going to provide housing, and we're going to provide people that will be able to develop or support the businesses of Cadillac's beautiful south end, which is what I've always been a proponent of. So I think that we just need to stay hopeful that it can be a good thing, and like he just said, clean up some of the disrepair that's happening, and make it a viable property that will contribute to the tax base and everything else. So I appreciate in spite of all of the negative comments he had today, that you made the change that you did. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else, we'll close public comment. And if there is no other business, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you. Thank you for making yourselves available.
Oh, sure. This is important.